things that I want to talk about. And I hope these things are something that you can take along your journey in, getting into these places where it feels like you're not welcome, and taking that and giving back to the community and pulling a lot of people along with you. That's one of the things that I really, really value. So first things first is, in order for us to, go after any goal, I think you can't pursue anything without having a foundation, right? You can't build a house without setting the foundation first. And I think one of the most important things, as far as from a personal development, from being ambitious and going after goals, is setting that foundation. And I believe those foundations are built on values, right? So unless you know which values are truly important to you, you will be swayed in any which way. For example, right, I've always had a motivation to become a surgeon, but, me being who I am, being, a Black woman, a Somali, a Muslim woman, a woman who, chose to wear a hijab, a woman who, is very maternal and wanted to have a bunch of kids. I was told that all those things that defined who I am did not fit into this world, which is, very white, very male dominated. And so, the guidance I was given was to change everything about me in order to fit into this world. But, having those values along with, a strong belief that my future and anything that happens to me was ultimately dependent on one individual or being, Allah, right? Tawakkul, having that, innate sense of, like, regardless of what the struggle is, tawakkaltu ala Allah. Like, I believe that regardless of what it is, no human being can get in the way of what I want to accomplish, made me stick to my other values a little bit more, right? So I remember applying to medical school, and I had I've done research, free research for a year and a half. I volunteered in a lab, got a tiny little scholarship, the year after. I did all this work just so that I could beef up my application for medical school. And because I chose to go the medical school route and not the PhD route, the person who wrote the strongest letter of recommendation to me, said, "I'm taking back my letter of recommendation. And you're lucky I'm not calling all the schools and telling them that you are unreliable," right? Basically, someone in a very senior position, someone who, who can, who basically completed my application to medical school and, was helping with my future, threatened to, ruin it right there and then. And that was not the first time. I've been threatened in the middle of at work or in the middle of an interview, right? So, and I think I was 20 or something at the time. Someone threatening to ruin your entire career. It's really easy to completely break down and say, you know what, I can't accomplish anything. What is it about me that I have to change? But after really breaking down and crying over that encounter, it finally hit me and said, he's a human being, right? He has control over a few things, but the Almighty Allah has control over everything. So there was that was the point that that I basically said, you know what, any obstacle that I come across, it's just Allah's way of telling me, this may not be for you, but there is something better that Allah has planned for me. So the strong values, and I think we are, as Somalis, as Muslims, we are very lucky to have that, a strong connection to our deen. And I think having that makes it a lot easier for us to be faithful, regardless of what the obstacles are. Knock 10 doors before you get to the one that finally opens for you, because tawakkaltu ala Allah, right? So that's one of the things that I really encourage young people that I speak to and that I mentor is, you have to, what values are important to you? Is it, deen is, first and foremost for almost all of us. Family values, your personal health, your mental well-being, entrepreneurial pursuits, what things are important to you, and solidify those so that when you are being directed in one way or another, you can always look back to your values and say, how does this fit with my values? How do I, how does someone telling me to do this, is it congruent with my values, or is it taking me away from my values? So that foundation, having set way ahead of time, I think will make it a lot easier for you to make decisions down the line. The second thing I want to talk about is sacrifice. Right. So we talk about, you have to sacrifice your time, you have to sacrifice a lot of things, but I want to talk about, being strategic with what you sacrifice. Right. And what I mean by that is, right now, I don't know if you guys are following Black in the Ivory hashtag on Twitter, but you'll see a lot of things that Black people and people of color and religious minorities go through in these fields and in these places where we don't belong, right? And so, as Somalis, I know we're hotheads and we don't take criticism or backlash very well, but there are times when you have to strategically sacrifice and take whatever obstacles come without putting up much fight. It's like it's more like losing a battle in order to win the war, right? So there are a lot of things that I have gone through that in hindsight I look at and say, how did I tolerate that? But I had to tolerate that, and I had to go through in a system that was never designed for someone like me, in a system that actively tried to push me out, so that I can do what I'm doing now, which is using that experience and using my voice to talk to that system and say, this system is wrong, we need to fix this, right? And I can use my voice to bring, women who look like me, Somalis, minorities from many other fields that are underrepresented, Muslim women who, want to wear the hijab, mothers who, yes, they want to be mothers, but you also can have, career aspirations to come into fields like this, and not only surgery, but any other field that, is built similarly, to say, no, these are things that we can challenge. And there has to be enough of us. There has to be critical mass, right? There has to be enough of us to go through the system to figure out where the loopholes and where the shortcomings are, so that we can come out and figure out how to fix it for those who follow us, right? This is one of the reasons why, when I talk about my journey, I rarely talk about, the success and the triumph and getting to do all these things. It's easy to see all of that, but I think one of the most important things when it comes to problem solving is you have to identify what the problem is, right? If you don't identify what the problem is, how can you fix it? And so like what's happening right now, right? I use social media, and I specifically stayed out of academia because I know the system, how it's designed, is there's a lot of censorship, right? You as an academic are representative of that institution. So what you say, you're not an individual, you are representing that institution. So I specifically made the choice to stay out of academia. And when I speak on social media or any other platform, I represent Dr. Qaali Hussein, right? I have actually made myself an LLC as an independent entity. Why? Because I know that there are a lot of people that my voice can serve, and it can do a lot more for them than an academic institution, right? And an academic institution that was built for people that don't look like me staying within that institution and speaking on behalf of them will not help my people, will not help people who look like me. So I've strategically stayed out of academia, and I chose to be, to have my own voice and use social media to give back, right? Where I live, I don't live around many Somalis, all the states that I've lived in. But you know what? We are in a time where we have social media, right? I can communicate with people in Somalia. I can communicate with you guys in the UK. I can communicate with people, all around the world. And I can use my voice to be, a mentor. I can use my voice to find opportunities. I can use my voice to teach. So I think that is part of the whole strategic, planning of, yes, we go through all these obstacles, but what are we going to do about it? How are we going to fix it? And by bringing more people along, we can force these systems to change. A lot of people, one of the things that I'm actively talking about right now is racism, not only in America, but within our healthcare system, right? We find it very hard to talk about these things because, it's emotional and, everybody's uncomfortable around it. But unless we, the people who are actively affected by it, are there to see where the shortcomings are and to point them out and say, this is a problem, we need to fix it, then it will never get fixed. So I think that is part of having more voices and those voices being vocal, not just being, yes, you are within that institution, but to also be vocal to call out the institutions. And Twitter is absolutely, fabulous for that. And to hold accountability, right? We do not have accountability within our systems. The systems, the way they're set up right now, there is no accountability. And we have a system where if the person who's being targeted speaks up, there's a consequence for the person speaking up, as opposed to the consequence for the person who's doing the attacking. Right. So that's one of the things that I, actively advocate for in my institutions where, the hospitals that I work at, but on a bigger scale, to say that it's not okay for us to say, oh, we will change things, but to push for that. And I think that's one of the things that I also want to encourage is keep in mind, why are you doing what you're doing? Fabulous talks, always remembering, your why. Why are you doing it? I think that's a bigger motivator than, than any financial gains that you will get. And, you'll get all the ajr from doing this. But I think, setting your foundations early on, what are your values and what is important to you, and what are you willing, to sacrifice. So it's okay to sacrifice a few things like your time and the time that you spend with your family here and there to reach that goal. But you also have to know which values you are not willing to compromise on. And once you get through this, how are you going to use your voice and how are you going to give back to your community through your experiences and through your influence?